Greenberg is on deck and ready for his one at bat.
Leading off for the Marlins. Pitch hitting for the left-hander Brian Peterson. Number 10, Adam Greenberg. Greenberg pitch hitting.
Hey YouTube, my name is Zach Greenberg and I'm here with my good friend Yoni Katz, and welcome to another edition of Celebrity Interviews. It is my privilege to be here with an MLB legend who shares the same last name as me conveniently. He was drafted in the 9th round by the Chicago Cubs and would go on to play 7 seasons in the minors and 2 in the majors. He's one of the best Jewish baseball players of our generation and was a member of 2013 Team Israel during the World Baseball Classic qualifier. Give it up for Adam Greenberg.
Thanks, Zach. Nice to talk to you and Yoni.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So I guess to start it off, can you tell us a little bit about your backstory, where you're originally from, how you got into baseball? I noticed that in high school you played multiple sports. So what led you to choosing baseball and I guess leading up to the MLB draft in 2002?
Yeah. So I grew up in Guilford, Connecticut, and was an avid Yankee fan. Was Yankees, Giants, and Knicks. And that was, so I was pretty heavy in New York. But at the end of the day, for me, baseball was the thing that I just gravitated towards, probably because it was the greatest opportunity for a 5'8" 3/4" white Jewish kid from Guilford, Connecticut to make professionally. But nonetheless, I mean, I played all 3 sports, as you mentioned, baseball, basketball, and soccer. And every given season, that individual sport was my favorite sport. And I really, really kind of just pride myself on the ability to play multiple sports. And as a kid, nowadays, I think they're put in a box and say, play one sport all year round. So, so I was very fortunate to grow up in the time when it was accepted and appreciated to do multiple sports. And when I was 13 years old, I tried out for the first Connecticut AAU team. And that was an opportunity to get around the best players in the state. And it was really the first time I had true baseball coaching, and made the team. We went on to Des Moines, Iowa for the national championship. We were undefeated, won the national championship. I was an all-tournament selection. So in my mind, I was All-American at that point. So I'm 13 years old. And I'm one of the best in the country, at least in my own mind. But what I did then was realize that was where I wanted to dedicate more of my time. So you can't play all sports all year, but when baseball was up, even if it was the off season and there was an opportunity or a game or something, I would choose baseball over the other sports after that 13-year-old season. But really the goal was Major League Baseball. I mean, 5 years old, watching the Yankees, that's what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. And as I got older and older, realizing that, again, the chances are so slim. But my mind was so set on that's what I'm going to do. I saw it every day. I trained for it. I made sure that I gave it everything that I had. But that's the 13-year-old year was when it was no question. That's where I was going and what I was doing.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, it definitely sounds like you really had that in plan throughout your whole life. But when you got the call up to the big leagues in 2002, was that something you were expecting it? I guess if you want to maybe relive that moment with us and let us know who you were with and what that felt like.
Yeah, no, it was. I was actually in 2005. 2002, I was drafted. In 2005, I got the major league call up, and the question was I prepared for it or expecting it? And the answer was unequivocally yes. I was prepared and expecting it. Again, from 5 years old, 13 years old, high school, college. It was only a matter of time before it actually happened. But leading up to that moment, I had really just kind of a switch went off in specifically my batting. I mean, defense was always there. Getting on base was always easy for me. Stealing bases, running the bases, all those things. But there was a switch that went off, and that season I was working with my hitting coach and a couple of the guys, one of which who I got called up with, Matt Merton, and we were on the field before a game, and the coach set up the pitching machine about 50 feet away, throwing as fast as it can go, 100 miles an hour, and real baseballs, hard baseballs on the field 50 feet away. And it kind of forced us to take the barrel right to the baseball, get rid of all excess movement, and just really feel comfortable just using the barrel of the bat. And from there, that was something that we kept doing day after day after day. And about for the next 3 weeks, I felt like baseball was easy. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, just getting in there 95, 97, whatever, the game was slowed down. And I felt really, really good and confident, righty, lefty, it didn't matter. So I went on a tear for those few weeks. So when I got the call, I was mentally prepared for it because of my whole life. But then physically, I felt like I was ready and I should be getting the call. It wasn't a matter of, oh my God, this is overwhelming, or I can't believe it. So it was quite remarkable, because Matt Merton and I were in the hotel room the night that we got called up, and the team bus went to Jacksonville, Florida. We were in Tennessee. The team bus left, and we were told we were probably going to AAA, because we were in AA at the time, and ended up getting the phone call, and we were told that we weren't going to AAA, we were going to the major leagues. And it was something that, what's that?
That's a big jump from AA to majors.
Yeah. But what was really cool, and I say this a lot, when you're in the minor leagues, you're rooting for other teammates, right? That's just because you're on the team. But anyone that says they're just unequivocally happier that somebody else got called up versus themselves, they're obviously lying. You don't play the game to hope that your buddy gets called up and you're sitting there still in the minor leagues. So the most remarkable part of my experience was I got to be with Matt Merton at the same time, getting the same call and having the same physical and emotional emotions of just being genuinely happy for myself and him. So we hugged, I don't know how long, but it was the coolest experience. And I'm forever grateful for that moment.
Very nice. Yeah.
So I guess be backtracking a little bit to that minor league seasons you were talking about. So from like 2002 to 2005, you were in the minors. You said you had great contact. I think I did the math. You batted .284 before you got called up to the majors. I think you had 15 homers, 77 stolen bases. What were some of the highlights and favorite moments of yours during your time in the minor leagues before making the majors?
The unequivocal top of my highlight was a game in Daytona, Florida. And it was my first year. It was 2002. I got drafted and decided to opt out of my senior year and sign the contract with the Cubs. And I went to, where was it? Lansing, Michigan for the beginning of my career. And the team had already started. It was halfway through the season because the draft was in June. So the team had already been established in spring training, and a lot of guys had already played rookie ball and whatnot. So I joined the team, and I'm kind of like the new guy, and it was awesome, but it was different. Here we are making I was making $850 a month. I was in Lansing, Michigan, living in a basement with no air conditioning, and no car. I mean, it was just like, boom, here's the real world. Like, go. And, but it was what I wanted my whole life. And I was just getting to play baseball for a living all day, every day. That was it. That was all I had to do and think about, and my responsibility. So I got off to a relatively good start. I was playing every other day, and they wanted to just kind of work me in slowly. And it was going well. And then I started struggling a little bit. And in a short season in baseball, if your average can be 400 and then it can be 200 in half a minute. So I had a couple of games where I just didn't get a hit, over 3, over 4, whatever. And next thing you know, my average is kind of low. I don't know what it was exactly, 220 something. And then I started sitting on the bench every day. So eight straight days I sat on the bench. And as you guys are well aware, baseball is not a game that you're playing once a week like football. So I had to watch the team play every day. Didn't get a chance to pinch hit, pinch run, start, come in, nothing. And I went down into the clubhouse, during that 8th game, and I looked myself in the mirror, and I tell the story of, Matt, have you guys ever looked yourself in the mirror, right? Like for real, other than like, okay, how do I look today, right? So here I am, a 21-year-old kid, left UNC Chapel Hill, could have broken not everyone, but a lot of statistical offensive records at the school, maybe gone to the College World Series. I mean, who knows? But here I was in Lansing, Michigan, playing professional baseball and kind of feeling like I'm on an island all by myself. And I looked myself in the mirror, and I started to feel sorry for myself a little bit, like, oh my God, did I make the right choice? And almost poor me. And I almost had to smack myself and say, get your head out of your ass. It's like, this is what I worked for my whole life. So to feel sorry for myself now and not be mentally prepared for when I get another opportunity, it'd be shame on me. So no sooner did that happen. Obviously the game continued and whatever. But the next day I got called into the manager's office, and knowing now what I know about what that means, sitting 8 straight days and not playing that great, I would have thought I was getting released. But at the time it was just like, okay, what does he want to tell me? And he's like, all right, well, you're getting promoted to Daytona, which is the higher level. We were in low A and I was going to high A, and he was making some BS remarks about, oh, we knew you were going up, so that's why we sat you on the bench and all this nonsense. But it didn't matter to me, because what it was an opportunity. And the team that I was on was in the playoffs, and that's why I was going away, because they had a good team and they just made a trade for a 6'7" outfielder who got $500,000 in the second round from the Pirates. So they traded for this kid. He came to our team, and then it was just like, all right, let's get rid of me. So I went to Daytona. The center fielder that was there was having the best year of his career, so he got bumped up. So I really was just going to fill a void. And the Daytona Cubs at that time was the worst team in the Cubs organization. So it was like the writing was on the wall, but I didn't care. That was not what I was looking for. And I'll never forget walking into Dave Tremblay, who was the manager of the Daytona Cubs that year, into his office. And he said, play hard, show up on time, bunt when you want, hit when you want, steal when you want. Just play the game right. And at that point, I mean, I looked at the dude, and if I didn't say I love you, I said it inside. I was like, man, this is what I need. So the story, getting back to your original question, the backstory was important, because the first game I led off, played center field. I didn't play center field once in Lansing, certainly never let off. And here I was getting to be in my element, what I love to do, and where I felt like I belonged. So first few games were really, really good. And I think it was my 5th game, I led off against the Mets and hit a home run in the bottom of the first. Second inning, I hit a triple off the right center field wall. Third inning, I didn't get up. Fourth inning, I led off with a bunt base hit down the third base line. And in the fourth inning again, I hit a ball off the right center field wall and they held up the guy at third base to keep me at second base for a double. So so I hit for the cycle in 4 innings. And at the time, I don't know where it stands now, it was the fastest recorded professional baseball cycle in history. So the unique part about the story is not that, oh my God, like I was 5 for 6 and I made 2 diving catches in the outfield and blah, like it was awesome, but it was more who was at the game. So all of the Cubs brass, the farm director, field coordinator, outfield roving instructor, for some reason was at that game that night with the Cubs minor league team in Daytona, who was having the worst year as a team in all of their minor leagues. So what I kind of laugh about is saying, in leading into the game, I was what's called a suspect. And by 3 hours later, I turned myself into a prospect. So where my career could have been over mentally if I wasn't prepared, I was now at the point of, all right, let's go. It's mentally and physically back. Let's go to the big leagues. Took a while, but it's still, that was the moment.
Yeah, wow, that's a pretty amazing story. And I guess in there, as I think the average fan, especially ones who are attending minor league games, probably hard to appreciate all those kind of struggles and also the triumphs that happen, in the minor leagues, especially. And I guess wanted to know your opinion. There's been a lot of talk recently about potentially unionizing for minor league players and increased pay. And what more do you think either Major League or minor league baseball can do for the minor leaguers out there in terms of helping them accommodate the lower pay and the tough travel, and especially you could just be shipped around the country like that. Saying coming up to Michigan and going down to Florida in a quick time. What more can they do to help out these young players?
That's a great question. And, a lot of, when you go through something and you go through those struggles, you can have one of two mental approaches. One is screw it, I had to do it, so you should too. And nowadays everything is coddled and, oh, poor you and whatnot. Part of what makes the minor leagues so good is the mental struggle and the day-to-day. I got to get through this and I got to overcome these obstacles. And baseball to me is the game of life. It's the closest thing to life. And you're going to be on cloud nine one day, and the next day you could be feeling like you're the worst player on the planet. And there's no way out. So how do you overcome those things? Now, with that being said, I'm also a big believer in doing what's right for people. And, just because you have those struggles, those are inherent struggles, no matter what. Baseball's hard enough. So to make it even harder with no pay or next to no pay, you're basically below the poverty line. I don't know what it is today with minor leaguers, but again, it was $850 a month when I first signed my contract, and that was the same as it was for 20 years. It may still be that. It may have bumped up a little bit.
Fortunately, not much higher. So it's one of those realities. Yeah.
So when you do the sheer mathematics, I don't ever want to have somebody compare it to, well, you're only playing this many hours during the day, right? Your life is at the ballpark, on the bus, traveling, all those things, and $20 a day for meal money. Again, it doesn't support that life. And when your body is a physical machine, that's what we're trying to talk about. Well, how do you fuel a machine with $20 a day on the road for food? So again, I'm a big proponent, whether it's unionized or just doing what's right and fair. I know they cut a lot of minor league teams, so there's your start. So you don't have that many to pay for. And I know the expenses. I've seen them. I know that minor leagues don't make a bunch of money, but that is the pipeline and lifeline for a major league club. So the better that those kids and those guys are treated. And I saw it playing for so many different teams. Those teams that really took care of their minor leaguers, they had a different aura, a different feeling of camaraderie and teamwork, and just feeling good about themselves and eating right and eating healthy and training right. So again, it's a lifestyle and a life choice that we've made to commit our lives to baseball, and in the minor leagues to get at least fair pay, meaning fair of a living wage. There's no reason that shouldn't happen. So do I think minor leaguers should be making $500,000 a year? No, they're not. There's not enough money to support that where they're playing. But should they have a living wage where they're not tapping into anything that they get from a signing bonus perspective? Yeah. I mean, the signing bonuses are supposed to be just in case, right? If you don't make it, and the numbers don't lie, very few will make it. And then those that do make it, I mean, I'm a great case in point. Even if you make it, doesn't mean anything financially. You could be in and out in a day. You could be in and out in a year. When you extrapolate however much you've made over the years that you've dedicated to that, well, what do you have? You don't have a degree. You have a degree in life and a degree in baseball. So there are things that you obviously can do. But again, there should be some form of compensation that is fair for what we're giving to the ownership. And I'll say that because we're doing it for ourselves, but at the end of the day, we're still a commodity and we're traded and we're gone, and it's our life. So I'm grateful for what I went through, certainly. but I think there certainly can be also more for the kids going through it now.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate the perspective.
So I guess going back to the first game, I know you talked about a little bit the buildup, and whatever you're comfortable sharing, we'd love to hear about what it was like that first game, like making the pros, making the Cubs in 2005, and I guess like you alluded to this, but like your first at bat obviously didn't go as anyone would have hoped, and you sustained a very severe injury, and you got right, like like you had a lot of months of rehab, and you eventually like you got back playing in the minors the next year. Do you think you talk a little bit about the game and what your road to recovery was like, and like what motivated you to keep persisting, to keep trying to keep playing baseball?
Yeah. When I got called up, obviously there was no greater feeling that I'd ever experienced in my life. I mean, it was everything I dreamed of and worked for, and all the sweat, injuries, tears, whatever. Like it was the pinnacle of my life at that time, but it was also while it was the pinnacle, it was also the starting block as well, right? So because it's the start of the next thing. And when I made it to the team and I walked into the clubhouse and Dusty Baker was there and Greg Maddux and Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor and Aramis Ramirez, Derek Lee, like, you definitely starstruck a little bit, right? And I say that because they were the ones that were there and established, and the guys I'd watched growing up, or some of them. So it was really, really remarkable to kind of walk into that clubhouse and say, hey, teammate, right? I'm here to help. I'm here to be a part of this. And the great part, again, about the minor leagues and spring training is I was around those guys. I got to practice with them. I got to play with them for a couple of years, although it was, maybe every other day or every couple of days, getting called up to the minor league spring or major league spring training games. But in 2005, I was in camp with those guys. So it wasn't like, walking into a clubhouse of guys that don't know who the hell you are. So there was a comfort level there. And again, as I mentioned about the physicality, I was ready to help that team and help them win games. So that was the coolest thing, walking in and seeing my jersey and hanging in my locker. So it was pretty remarkable. And it was down in Florida. It was raining like constantly. So we didn't have batting practice on the field. So I never got to really walk out and run around and shag flies as a major leaguer. And that I think it was the second night I got my opportunity. The Marlins at the time had a couple nasty left-handers. Dontrell Willis was pitching, and this other guy Olson was another lefty starter. So I didn't start either of those first two games. And came around to the ninth inning, and they were bringing in, they had a righty and a lefty warming up in the bullpen. And the lefty came in to pitch, and I was like, oh man, I had my gloves. I was all ready to go. I think I had my gloves, my bat, and the only thing that I needed was to grab my helmet. And Dick Pohl, who was the bench coach, yells down when I saw the lefty coming in. He's like, hey, Greeny, grab a bat. You're hitting for the pitcher. So at that moment, I was like, game on. Like, I didn't care righty or lefty. Again, I was so dialed in, it didn't matter. And stepped into the batter's box, and it was one just like any other at bat, to be honest. It was just, I have a job to do. I have to get on base, and then I have to steal some bases and I have to score, like whatever. That was all that I was thinking about. And didn't know the guy's name at the time. Didn't care what he threw. Like, I really was just like, he's got to take that white ball. He's got to throw it over the plate, and I got to hit it. So the first pitch, it releases out of his hand, and he had a, lefty delivery. I'm a lefty batter. So it was coming from behind me. And as the ball releases, I'm looking at it, and it's coming kind of at my head. And my first immediate reaction was, stay in there. Don't bail, because if this is a breaking ball, I'm going to look stupid on my first major league at bat on ESPN. And I bailed out. So the second, we'll call it 10th of a second, I was like, oh man, that's not spinning. Like, that's not a curveball. It's not a slider. So the last 10th of a second, it was get the hell out of the way. And I turned my head to just try to get away from it. And the ball caught me right up under the helmet, 92 miles an hour, like square on my head. My head exploded. I mean, it sounded like there was a gunshot. And my eyes rolled in the back of my head. I grabbed my head because I thought it split open. It was scary, man. It was the most scared moment I've ever had in my life. You know, at the same instant, I was, my God, I'm in the major leagues. This is my first at bat. And what's cooler than this? And then bam, like, that's it. So the only thing I did was said 2 words 3 times: stay alive, stay alive, stay alive. That was it. So to kind of answer your next part of your question was what motivated me. I mean, I came back 21 days, or I think it was 21 or 23 days later after I got hit, and I was back playing minor league baseball. I lied to the training staff because I said I was healthy. I slept sitting up for 8 days, and it was just, so I had a neck brace on, and it was to make sure that my eyes, because I had positional vertigo that I didn't know I had, make sure my eyes didn't waffle. And, you know, I just stand up and walk without moving my head at all, because I knew if I leaned down, my eyes would shift uncontrollably, headaches were just nasty. So I faked that I was okay, because here, you know, it's the insight in mind, out of sight, out of mind. And a guy who may or may not should been called up or whatever, I had to get back on the field. So I rushed myself back, and I played okay, but my vision was off, like nothing was on. And I ended up kind of pulling myself out in the minor leagues towards the end of the season. And I didn't finish the year. But it was, you know, I gave it my all. And for the next 7 years, what pushed me to keep fighting through anything and everything, including a personal bankruptcy, losing my home, to all the multiple different types of injuries, surgeries, independent baseball, you name it. I kind of went through it. And the motivator was that was not going to be my major league call up. That was not going to be it. I'm not satisfied. And it was not obviously a monetary thing. It was, this is not going to, if I give up, I will never lay my head down at night knowing that I didn't make it back. So it was just internal motivators that would not let me give it up. So it was a 7-year journey and battle to finally make it back. I mean, I played on multiple teams: the Dodgers, Royals, Angels, Reds, tried out with the Mets, played for Team Israel, played in Bridgeport for the Bluefish. So it was just one of those, I was making it back no matter what. And unfortunately in 2013 or 2012, it happened.
I was just going to ask, in a crazy twist of fate in 2011, while you're playing for the Bluefish, you got the chance to play against the same pitcher who, I guess, called like from the Marlins, who I think De Los Santos.
Yep.
And you actually got a hit off of him. So can you tell us about that at bat? And you ended up, I think, playing against him a few times.
Yeah. So it was during the off season of, I guess it was after 2010 season, the off season going in. I had a shoulder surgery at the end of my 2009 season. So 2010 was not the best year for me. And I had heard that Valerio De Los Santos had signed with the Long Island Ducks, which was the team that we were going to be playing opening day. And I just knew it during the offseason. I'm like, I got to be healthy and ready to face this guy, because I knew he was going to be pitching, whether he was starting or coming in. I was like, I'm facing him no matter what. So I had that whole offseason to prepare for that at bat. And it was almost as if I used it as my major league at bat. As crazy as that may sound, it was Bridgeport. It was freezing. There was nobody in the stands, maybe 800 people. It didn't matter. It felt like, when I was facing him that night, and there was a packed house, and here we are. And the first pitch he threw was like a cutter in at my hip and crossed over the plate. And I backed out of the plate. I looked at him. I was like, all right, dude, if you're good, I'm in, let's go. So So it was a little battle. I ended up getting a base hit, and I got on first base, and it was really just like gratification of accomplishing a goal that, I could go back in time and be like, oh, what if that happened? What if I did get a hit off him the first time? Like, what would have? And at the end of the day, it's just like life. It didn't, right? Here I was in the moment, in the now, and I used that as just for me. It was only for me, and it was magical, and I'll have that forever. So I get to cherish the fact that I got to face him again, and I got a base hit, and I beat him. So that was cool.
So I know you alluded to this for a second, but you actually had probably one of my favorite baseball moments I've ever seen in my life. In October 2012, I think maybe a few months before, a few Chicago Cubs fans started a petition trying to get you back in the majors because, you obviously had an unfortunate circumstance that mitigated your MLB career. And the Miami Marlins actually signed you to a one-day contract to face off against the best pitcher of that year, R.A. Dickey, who was on his way to becoming a Cy Young pitcher. How did that all come about? I can't believe that actually worked, getting a fan petition, getting you back in the majors, and what that was like getting your second chance at the MLB.
Yeah, so the off season of 2011, so entering the 2012 year, I had started a nationwide health and wellness company back in 2010, and I was doing it out of the clubhouse. The business was growing. It was really, really great to finally be back in control a little bit of my life while playing independent baseball in Connecticut. At the same time, I never gave up and never stopped believing that I was going to make it back. And I just needed an opportunity. So during that off season, I got a phone call from a fan, and his name was Matt Liston, who is a film producer. He did bunch of documentaries, a couple on the Cubs, and just a huge baseball guy. And he's like, listen, I want to, your story transcends sports. I want to get you back to the big leagues and blah, 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 all this nonsense. But he was introduced to me by somebody from ESPN. So there was credibility. He was not just some Joe Schmo who's like, hey, I want to get you back. But so many people had given up on me. And what I knew physically I had the ability, and I just really needed an opportunity. And at the end of the day, I kind of looked at it and I told him straight up, I said, I'm not a charity case, and I'm not getting a call up just because somebody feels bad for me. I said, I want to get an opportunity, go to spring training with a team and an organization and work my way and earn my spot to the big leagues. And that was the only deal. I said, but I'm not going to play independent baseball. I said, it's not happening. I said, I'm over it. I'm done with it. I'm just get me to spring training. So we kind of agreed on that aspect. He's like, I just really need you to play. I really need you to. I said, I'm not playing independent baseball. And I kind of mentioned earlier all the different times that I was injured in my career, and I always rushed back. And that most recent one was 2009 off season. I had a 90% rotator tear, and I had surgery, 7 anchors, and a labral repair, and I came back in 3.5 months playing ball. So I never fully recovered physically and probably mentally. So that year in 2012, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the year and just stay physically fit and keep hitting and keep throwing and keep just myself ready, but get to a place back where I'm truly healthy and I can go be the player that I need to be. And I stuck true to that. And then halfway through the season, Matt sent me this, or maybe more than halfway through, he sent me this video of a kind of a pre-documentary that he was going off and interviewing all these coaches and all these, the GM for the Cubs and on, and interviewed all these former teammates and managers. And it put me in tears. It literally put me in tears as I was watching it. And at that point I called Matt and I was like, you got me for anything. I said, I'm in, all in, but I'm not playing independent baseball. So get me somewhere to spring training. And no sooner did that happen, Team Israel reached out, and that was like, game on. That's my chance. So I went down to Florida, started training with the guy that I worked with, Wally Horseman, and it was back to like, hey, get me healthy, get my swing right. Not healthy. I was healthy. Get my swing right, because I was a mess. I didn't know why I was good. I didn't know how I was good. After I had the surgery, my stance was screwed up. My swing was awful. It was like I was bad, and I owned it. But I said, I need help. Get back to the basics. So we got on a tee, got back to the basics, and he looked at me in the beginning. He's like, dude, you suck. Dude, like, what the fuck happened to you? I was like, all right, well, good. At least we're agreeing on something. So I hit for a few days until my hands were bleeding, literally. And I said, I just need to be ready. And I went down to Team Israel it was a tryout, and I ended up making the team. Gabe Kapler actually gave up his spot for me to play after he's like, you're going to provide more value to the team than he would as a player at that point. So he just stuck on the coaching side. So it was cool. I'm like, oh, my life's starting to shift. And I really started to hit like I was back to my old form. So I was excited again. I was prepared again, and I was really ready. So we obviously lost in the championship for the Team Israel, where the qualifier would have happened, or where we would have been on the world stage in the classic in the spring. So that would have been my spring training. So here we go again. Like, man, we lost. I played well, but there's essentially my career. And then after the game, the Matt Liston, who was there doing this, at this point doing a documentary, he came up to me, or called me while I was still in the clubhouse. He called me multiple times. Hey, are you coming out? Hey, are you coming out? I'm like, dude, leave me alone. Like, it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm not happy, like potentially taking my cleats off for the last time. And then I walked outside, and he started doing an exit interview. I was like, Matt, I'm not in a good mood, so I'm not going to fake my emotions, whatever. So he's like, man, no sooner did that happen than his phone rang, and it was David Sampson from the Marlins. And David Sampson was the president of the Marlins at the time. And he got on. He's like, listen, we knew about you, obviously, when we hit you years ago. We thought everything was fine. We didn't kind of follow you because we were just told everything was okay. And the campaign hit them. And they sent out some scouts. They sent out people to watch me. And that's kind of where my whole thing with Matt Liston was. I'll agree because I need an advocate. I need no different than an agent. That's all an agent does anyway. Advocate for their player. So I said, well, I got an advocate, and I know that I can play. So bring the scouts to come watch me and not be a charity case. So ultimately that's what happened. So he said, we were there. We followed you. Didn't know what was going on. And then we started following you, and where you were in 2005, you were a big leaguer, and we feel like you're a big leaguer again, and we want to give you that opportunity. So again, it wasn't like, oh, poor Adam, what a tough thing. I endured 7 years of a struggle and a journey to get myself back.
You earned it. Like, you're impressed. They were impressed by your ability, like that you recovered and looked like you're healthy again.
Yeah. So that was it.
Wow. What was it like going? Like, were you like nervous going up against the Cy Young pitcher? Or
no, because it was probably the easiest at bat of my life, because here I was expected to not get a hit. And it was, I think DeGrom was on that team, and maybe Syndergaard. I don't remember, but I know DeGrom he was on the team, and I was like, man, I'd love to face 98. That's easy. Like, give me something that I've seen before. Not saying that would have been easy. Certainly easier than facing a guy that no one had ever seen in the history of baseball throwing an 82 mile an hour or 84 mile an hour knuckleball. Like, that was unheard of. So there's no way to train for that. There's no way to be prepared for that. I'd face knuckleballers, and they're on or off, but when they're on and they're throwing that hard, it's tough. So So that was the only part of like calming any emotions was, well, everyone expects me to get out, but I don't. I expect to get on. And I said, I do not want him throwing me a fastball. I want him throwing me his best. And it was cool hearing him in an interview talk about what he's like, I'm going to treat him like the big leaguer that he is. So it was really, really cool to kind of hear that and know that no matter what the result was, I had made it back. So stepping into that batter's box with Aerosmith, Dream On playing and blasting, and the crowd going nuts, and everyone's holding up these one at bat signs and stepping into the batter's box. I actually stepped out of the batter's box to just appreciate the moment, because I knew that who knows if it'll ever happen again, because I've learned in the past. So whether it was one pitch or 3 pitches or whatever, I was going to appreciate it and enjoy it.
So you've touched on this a little bit, that you're a Jewish athlete and you played for Team Israel, and in 2014 you got inducted into the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. So what does it mean for you to be a Jewish athlete, like representing, I'm Jewish, and I just, I really appreciate you being there, like representing, showing that we could play sports too and be like everyone else. Like what did it mean for you for all that?
Well, it started in college. I used to get fan mail from Jewish kids, and just saying, "Oh, we following you, and this is so great." And you just kind of feel that kind of tribe mentality of, as you mentioned, we can do it too. We don't necessarily look like a minority. I mean, sometimes we can do it to ourselves, but so just growing up, knowing that we're different. Or not like everyone else, or not like the majority of people around, at least where I grew up, and then going to UNC Chapel Hill, where no one had even met a Jewish person. So kind of getting a better sense of appreciation for what it stands for so many people, outside of just, hey, I'm playing baseball and I'm doing this for me. I really got to appreciate that aspect of it. And there were so many different times in my career where being Jewish and the connections and network that I had really helped my life. And I say that specifically to the kinesiologist that I was working with, that was a Jewish collector of autographs and baseball memorabilia, but he was a kinesiologist and a chiropractor, and he helped me immensely with nutrition, and subsequently helped me launch my nutrition business. And then there was a Jewish vision doctor who was an ophthalmologist who really saved my life. I mean, he had a vision training therapy, and again, these guys didn't help me just because I was Jewish, but there was that connectivity, and because I was Jewish, they kind of there was just a different level of kind of, I'll call it just reaching out. And for me, the gratitude was there. And it forged this long-term relationship. But he was an ophthalmologist, and I didn't know I couldn't see, because my vision was not working together correctly. And through vision therapy, I was able to at least save my cognitive ability and my physical ability to hit a baseball. So, I know there's a lot of people out there that my stories touched on all levels, but certainly on a lot of Jewish people. So I pride myself in that tremendously.
That's amazing. And thank you so much I've learned a lot from all this. I was just, I've already gotten a lot of takeaways about persistence, not giving up, and, appreciating the moments. And I was just hoping if you had any final closing remarks for our viewers out there.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a book called Get Up, The Art of Perseverance. And the title kind of says everything. No matter what happens in life, you have 2 choices. Poor me, feel sorry for yourself, or get up and keep going. And, there's only one choice that really affects yourself and everyone else in a positive way. And that's just to get up and never quit. Perseverance is it's something that we all have. It's inherent in us, but it's no different than any other gift. If we stop working at it, it just goes away and it's like a nothing. So get up, keep moving, keep going forward. And as long as you believe and you keep going in that direction, then anything's possible.
Amen. Amen. Really appreciate it, Adam. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today.
All right, brother. You bet. Good luck with everything.